Hey guys, we are back here again. So this is a different day here. I'm actually recording this just before this is going to be uploaded, like a couple days before. So time kind of got away from me. I was a little busier than I thought I would be, but here we are. And I wanted to go ahead and we'll give a preview of the fall movie season, what's coming up here, and we'll also take a look at the three early kind of fall festivals that happen. So that'd be Venice, Telluride, and Toronto. So yeah, that's all going to be in this video. Plus, at the end, I'm going to go ahead and go over my early picks for who I have in for the top 8 categories. Yeah, we'll just stick with that, and we'll kind of go down that list. So that's mostly most of these films are going to be sight unseen when we get to those picks, though. Sometimes with my early picks, I don't get to them until after Toronto is wrapped up. But that's not going to be the case this time. We're going to go ahead and give the early picks, see how many of those potential films are duds, how many of them are actually really good, and we'll probably keep up with in the race and everything. But yeah, we'll have to see. Also, you might notice I've got a friend behind my shoulder there. Yeah, it's a little custom piece that I had a family member do for me, so I'm really excited that they were able to do that, and it looks awesome. All wood piece, by the way. So, yeah, so that's a great little thing. So appreciate that. It's he's not going anywhere, so that's hope you guys enjoy that. Um, Okay, let's go ahead and get started here just with the films that are gonna already slated to come out. Then we'll go over the festival stuff because there's always a couple of films here or there that go into the festival marketplace and get picked up for distribution, and then that company usually then starts up the big awards contention for that film. So we'll go ahead and get started here. We'll just kind of go through the films September through December that look like Oscar contenders. And I might peek and see if there's anything that's going to qualify and will be released more widely in January. I might peek at that here at the very end, but at least we'll do September through December. Yeah, so I don't really have, obviously over Labor Day, there's usually no Oscar contenders in that period. Um, just to name check it, Equalizer 3 actually looks like it's a little bit of a better quality movie than we usually get over Labor Day. Labor Day is usually like one of the dumping grounds, kind of like what used to be kind of like that January kind of season where it's like movie studios are like, oh, we thought this would be good, but it's trash, so we'll put it out in either early September or early January. But nowadays it's like, nah, every once in a while you get some January fare that does okay, and some September films, even early-ish September, that aren't too bad. But we'll see. Um, yeah, so I'll just name check that one. Otherwise, probably September 15th is when we get a couple of films that are really on the outside looking in, but maybe might be able to manage to get some buzz. The first one, Lesser So, that's going to be A Haunting in Venice. It's the third film from Kenneth Branagh where he's oh geez, I can't remember the character's name now. Hercule Poirot. God, I saw the Murder on the Orient Express latest version, if you will, and that was about it. I didn't bother with the second one. What was that? Murder on the Nile, I think. And this one I didn't realize was actually another a book, but it was actually a Halloween Party, an Agatha Christie one. But yeah, I can't remember how many Perot books there are by Christie. There's quite a few, if I remember right. And actually, just looking over this really quick, yeah, Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express were kind of, I guess, in the middle of those runs, and this is like one of her later ones. And yeah, even though they do have, obviously Branagh's back, also acting in the film as Perot, as well as directing. You got like Jamie Dornan, Tina Fey, and Michelle Yeoh in this as well, but it's a smaller cast and not as big, big names as what we got, with his last couple films. Yeah, again, I don't expect it to do much. The previews have not enticed me, so yeah, that's that one. One that kind of does, though, is the new film by Craig Gillespie, and that's Dumb Money. And he's working with a few of his muses here, like Sebastian Stan, lately Seth Rogen, Dane DeHaan. I think Dane DeHaan did at least one or two of the other things with him. But this has got, it's got a really good cast in it, though, with Paul Dano, Pete Davidson, Vincent D'Onofrio, America Ferrera, Nick Offerman, Anthony Ramos, Sebastian Stan, as we mentioned, Shailene Woodley, Seth Rogen, we mentioned, Dane DeHaan, we mentioned. Quite a few people in it. And of course, it has to do with the kind of, I believe it was solely Reddit thing that happened right not too long after COVID started, where they, the GameStop thing. It's based all on that, which it's kind of interesting to see some of these films when they come out like not too long after the actual events. You could have All the President's Men, or you could have, all those other things where it's like, yeah, it was too soon to do a story on it. Now, of course, Gillespie is best known for I, Tonya as of recently. He also did Cruella, which I watched a little bit of with my niece because it was on Disney Plus, and then everybody kind of got bored with it. And then from the TV side, though, he was had a big hand in Pam and Tommy, which kind of a lot of those miniseries look interesting to me, but I just never actually dive into them. But this one, it sounds like it's going to go limited on the 15th, and then it'll be wider when we get closer to October. And this one, it will also be at TIFF, which it's kind of iffy. You get those TIFF films when the film itself is going to premiere in September. It's kind of a roll the dice situation. You could have Hustlers, which actually really surprised us. And I, at first glance, totally took that one for granted and was just like, oh, that's just, they've got a couple bigger names in it. They're just going to dump it there just to get a couple of those stars there and stuff. And shit, what do you know? Jennifer Lopez actually had an Oscar campaign behind her. And the film itself, some people thought had a good chance at landing some Oscar nominations. It came up short, but that surprised us. And then you have other films like The Goldfinch, which I believe was the same year. And it's like, okay, it's got a shot. It's a little scary that they're putting it here, even though it does have some talented people behind it. And it ended up being supposedly one of the worst films of that whole year, regardless of whether it was an Oscar contender or not. It just absolutely collapsed. I don't know if this is going to be somewhere in between or not, but it's based on a book that is by the same writer who did, same author who did The Social Network. You've got, like we said, we mentioned the cast. Kirk Baxter is editing this, who's actually worked with David Fincher, funny enough, on Social Network and a couple of those other films as of late. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by it. I just think it's really, it's an interesting topic to cover, and so recently as well. They played a preview for this one in front of Oppenheimer, and I was just surprised how much language was in the trailer. It was like every third word was fuck, and I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So that's the kind of direction you're going with the marketing there. But even that being said, I still think it's a fascinating enough topic that I'll probably end up checking this one out, and we'll see how it turns out. We're going to skip past the 22nd. There's really nothing on that day. For the last weekend in September, again, I'm just not seeing anything here that looks, amazing as far as its potential. There's one here I've just started to see some ads for called The Creator. It's actually from Gareth Edwards, who did Rogue One, or at least parts of Rogue One. Also did Godzilla, and I think, what was the other one? Didn't he do one after Rogue One? No, he did not. Okay, that's weird. I thought he did one afterwards. And it's got a few big names in it, like John David Washington leading the cast with Gemma Chan, Ken Watanabe, and Allison Janney also shows up in it. This one, I guess it's going to be at Fantastic Fest, so it's got at least one festival that it's going to play at. But I don't know. I don't, and it looks like it's more like a big budget kind of thing. So definitely not an Oscar player, but that one, at least it has some names behind it. Otherwise you got I guess another Saw, but I don't even bother with those, so not for me. Okay, let's get into October here, rather. October. Off the first weekend here, there's really not much there either. It looks like a lot more things that are more like, again, horror-based and stuff as we're getting into October there. There's no Halloween film this year, which is, we've had a couple the last 2 years. I didn't even bother with the last one. I was going to go see it, and I couldn't go at the last second, and I could never reschedule it. And you do have Garth Davis, who directed Lion, And then he did Mary Magdalene, which was he reteamed with Rooney Mara on it, and it just nobody was interested in it. And I think it actually okay, 44%. Okay, I thought the Rotten Tomatoes score was actually a lot lower than that. He does have one new one out called Foe with Saoirse Ronan and Paul Mescal. And yeah, I haven't heard a lot of press on that one. I guess it's going to be at the New York Film Festival, but again, I believe that's going to be like right as the film is getting close to opening, because the festival starts on the 29th, September 29th, and this film comes out on the 6th. I'm guessing in limited release. And also, it looks like it's through Amazon as well. So you have no idea what it's about, but you got a couple names in there at least that people know and recognize. But we might not have a Halloween film this year, but we do have an Exorcist film, and it's from David Gordon Green. And I don't believe Danny McBride co-wrote this one. Anyways, but yeah, so this one, I didn't see the trailer right away. It was actually, again, I believe it was in front of either Oppenheimer or something else that I saw the trailer. And it looks curious. The original Exorcist is one of those films where I definitely appreciate it a lot. And with, William Friedkin sadly passed away here about a month ago or so. So it's, I think it's that and a couple of his other films are kind of starting to get some notoriety again. And people are like, yeah, he was a really, really great director, kind of one that kind of got underappreciated by the end of his career, even if his film quality kind of dropped a little bit. But yeah, this one, it's like you do have some talented people in here, like Leslie Odom Jr. and Ann Dowd in there, along with a couple, relative unknowns. But then, of course, you have Ellen Burstyn coming back, which part of me is still surprised because she is 90 years old and she's still working hard in Hollywood. Because it's not just she came back for this one; she has done a lot of other films. Like she was absolutely phenomenal in Pieces of a Woman here a couple of years ago. I just was shocked that she did not take off in that supporting actress. I would have put her near the very, very top of the best supporting performances that year female performances that year for sure. Yeah, and this one again, it looks like they're going to do the same thing as what they did with Halloween, where they're going to have 2 sequels. Come out year to year to year. I don't know if Ellen Burstyn is coming back for all of them. If they were smart, they would shoot a lot of her scenes as well as as well in advance as you can. That way, it's at least you kind of, and hopefully by that point you have the stories in mind. You're not just gonna, and unfortunately, like they had to do with Carrie Fisher, kind of just insert her scenes where you could and work around it. But that was obviously a different situation. But we'll see. So I'm curious about that one. It's coming out on a Friday the 13th, which is really, I mean, you had to do it. You had to do it. And I think it's going to do pretty well at the box office. Is it going to do like Halloween 2018 numbers? I don't know. Because the slasher crowd versus something like The Exorcist. The Exorcist, obviously, when it came out at the box office in the 70s, gigantic box office hit. At the time, one of the highest grossing films ever made, adjusted for inflation. And I believe even if you put it on that list today, it's still like in the top 100 at least. It's very, very much up there. And the first Halloween, of course, was a big, big success. But since then, you've had many, many more follow in the trope of the slasher film versus exorcisms. It's like, yeah, it was obviously, there's still kind of a subculture of it in the horror genre, but not nearly as popular as the slasher film, which even to this day with Scream sequels and stuff, it's still kind of around. It's still, the heart of that, subgenre is still beating. Versus exorcism and possession films, they're still out there. They're just not. They don't get as much attention. I think they're a little bit more like, okay, they come out and they're kind of a big deal for like a minute, and then everybody forgets about them. Versus slashers, it's like, especially if they can catch on and become a franchise, boom, they're around for a while and people remember them. So I don't think it's going to do that business, but north of 40 million, and I'm just guessing this right now. We don't have any box office projections as of yet, but 40 million should be at least the bottom number for that one, I would think, just because it is, Ellen Burstyn coming back. It is that I think they're going to have a strong marketing push. And funny enough, I actually had my brother, who's not a huge horror person. His girlfriend kind of said, "Okay, let's watch some scary movies." So they put on the original. He's like, "I actually really liked it." I'm like, for him, he hates like boring movies. And The Exorcist, the original Exorcist, if you've seen it, I wouldn't be, I kind of fall in that crowd too. It's like some of the Father Karras scenes are okay, but you're really there for the Reagan scenes, for the actual possession scenes. Which is really weird because the first reaction my brother had was I like the Father Karras character. I'm like, really? Those are the boring parts. You actually like those parts. And in in rewatches, I've grown to respect that part a lot more and like it a lot more. You still really are there for the possession scenes. But anyways, we can move on from that. I think we've kind of covered that. And then I think the only other one I've heard a little bit of buzz on this. It's the Persian version, which was at Sundance, 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, at least according to Wikipedia here, which stuck, they can stick in whatever they want, so it might be a little, has moved a little bit here and there. Yeah, so that's, I've heard a little bit about it, but again, that looks like it's going to go limited first and then try to expand out once we get into later October, early November. I don't know. We'll see if that one goes anywhere. Then you have one of the bigger dogs coming out, and they actually, I'm glad I shot this today because there was some news. This was originally supposed to be a limited release on the 20th, but now it's going to be a wide release, and then it will later on be on Apple Television. It's Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. Now, I've been very interested in this project since they first started talking about this, geez, what was that, 5 years ago? Probably 4 or 5 years ago. Because I think, oh boy, it might not have been Eric Roth, who's a co-writer on this, and Scorsese is co-writing this. Now it's kind of interesting because last year were all like, oh, Spielberg, he might get nominated for writing, which would be the first. That was really the first film he had written, or at least co-written since Close Encounters, long time. Scorsese, though, when it comes to the screenplays, he's had a little bit more of an active hand in that. Let's see here. Just Silence. I was going to say, I thought it was Silence was the last one that he actually helped co-write. Before that, you got to go back to Casino. He helped co-write Age of Innocence, and he helped co-write Goodfellas. Mean Streets he co-wrote as well. So he's a little more active than Spielberg has been as far as co-writing or writing his own films. But even that being said, yep, he is writing this one. I thought it was actually going to be the guy who wrote The Irishman, the screenplay for The Irishman, I should clarify, whose name, I had it and I lost it. Steve Zalian, yeah. Who, obviously an Oscar winner for Schindler's List and stuff, so he's been a very talented writer for a long time. And yeah, The Irishman script was pretty good. Eric Roth, though, you can't really go wrong with Eric Roth. Obviously you got Forrest Gump, you got Munich, more recently was helping out on Star is Born and Dune. You can look through his filmography here, even with films like Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, or Curious Case of Benjamin Button, or The Good Shepherd, Ali, The Insider. It's like he kind of does a little bit of everything. But otherwise it looks like we've got most of the rest of the Scorsese regulars here, like Rodrigo Prieto doing the cinematography, Thelma Schoonmaker in the editing room, of course, Robbie Robertson doing the music. I think this really does, along with Oppenheimer, has the potential to be not only one of the early favorites to win the whole thing, but also be one of the more nominated films. You look like you've got DiCaprio for sure in the hunt for Best Actor. De Niro at this moment, I believe, on Gold Derby leads the supporting acting race, which I'm just not, I'm sorry. Just his luck recently he's just not been able to hold on. So I've got him in, but like in a fourth or fifth, like lower spot. But I think he's still in contention for sure. Lily Gladstone, though, I think is an early favorite to be in the play for supporting actress. You've also got Tantoo Cardinal in this, John Lithgow, Jesse Plemons, Brendan Fraser shows up in this. And I thought there was one or two more, but now I'm not seeing their names on here. Supposedly Scorsese will cameo in this, or kind of have a smaller, like maybe one scene role, kind of like he had in like Quiz Show, for example. Or even Mean Streets, if you want to go back to that one. Or Taxi Driver. But yeah, this one, I mean, the story itself, at first, when I was hearing it, I thought it was going to be both DiCaprio and De Niro were going to be like FBI members that were investigating the murders that were happening here. But it looks like it's actually going to be Jesse Plemons who plays that kind of role. And this is before the FBI is actually founded. So, because it's 1920s, 30s, somewhere in there. But, it says Edgar Hoover is 29 years old at the beginning of the film. So, okay. Interesting. But It looks like an interesting story. Definitely one that I'm going to keep an eye on for sure, and I'll try to see it in theaters as long as it's actually playing in my area. This one was at Cannes and came out to remarkable reviews, 97%. Average rating was 8.7 out of 10, so that's on the higher list of some of Scorsese's films recently. Now, of course, that's with only a smattering of reviews from those that were at Cannes or that got screenings around that time. So we'll see once it gets into wider release here, or closer to wider release, when those critic screenings start up again. We'll see if it drops a little bit or a lot. We'll see. But yeah, it looks like also kind of similar to Oppenheimer, it will play in some IMAX theaters. So we'll see if the cinematography and stuff, if that really helps its case. But yeah, again, I easily see this being one of the more nominated films on Oscar morning. And it's going to play for a few of those categories for contention for sure. So that's a big one. One that's also coming out, will be a Netflix release, will be Naiad. And this is Annette Bening's next shot. She's 0 for 5 or 6. Oh boy. Remind me here, somebody. Is it 5 or 6? If she loses this one, she'll be 0 for 5. She's actually only been nominated 4 times. So, yeah, so if she loses this one, she'll be 0 for 5. I haven't heard much what the story's about. You've also got Jodie Foster and Rhys Ifans in this one. And Alexander Desplat is doing the score. Claudio Miranda, who's actually was snubbed, surprisingly, in Best Cinematography last year for Top Gun. He's shooting this one. And the directors are Elizabeth, I don't know if I can pronounce her last name, Vazirhelyi and Jimmy Chin. It looks like they're out of the Far East, I'm guessing. Actually, they worked on, or at least Elizabeth worked on Free Solo, and Jimmy Chin as well, and they're actually a couple. Okay, makes sense. So they're Oscar winners. So this will be interesting. Again, I'm not sure who the subject matter is. Diana Nyad or Niad. Used to be a swimmer. First person to have swum from Cuba to Florida without the aid of a shark cage. From Havana to Key West, or Havana, however you want to pronounce it. Okay, and she is a real-life figure who's still living. Okay, so we know she doesn't die at the end. I guess I didn't spoil that. Yeah, interesting. This one will play at Telluride. Actually, will premiere on Friday, so that'll be interesting to see if she has a shot here to get this one. And yeah, it actually looks like a more interesting subject matter now that I'm kind of looking into it more. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on here to the 27th of October, and there's some bigger players also coming out this weekend. We have David Yates, who's more known for directing some of the later Harry Potter films, will actually break away from that for once, and he has a film called Pain Hustlers, which is described as a crime drama about a high school dropout who lands a job with a pharmaceutical company, which is failing. And is part of a criminal conspiracy. Okay, we'll see. It's going to play at TIFF. Also will be on Netflix. Okay, I was going to see if they have more details on that. But it looks like it's just going to be Netflix's standard plan here. We'll wait. I'll tell you, Netflix might have a different plan, though, for one other film, which is actually coming out the same weekend, and that's The Killer, which we actually just saw the first trailer finally drop for that. I've been very much looking forward to what this is going to look like as a film here. Because Fincher, Mank obviously came out and did very well at the Oscars as far as nominations, but you could argue kind of fell short with some of those expectations for wins. Did come back and win cinematography, though, so that was it was close. We knew it was close. But yeah, Fassbender's in this, and I believe Tilda Swinton and Arliss Howard are the only other big names that most people would recognize, or at least some film fans would recognize. This is going to be at Venice, and I don't believe it's hitting any of the other fall festivals as of yet. And if I remember correctly, it's in competition. Okay, I couldn't remember if it was in or out of competition. But, yep, Messerschmitt is back shooting this one. Kirk Baxter is doing the editing here, and Reznor and Ross, his more frequent collaborators as of late, are doing the score. And this is based on either a graphic novel or a comic book. One of the two, or at least going to be loosely based. And it also looks like it's going to be less than 2 hours, which for David Fincher, that's been pretty good as of late. So yeah, this one looks like originally it was just going to be um, Netflix, kind of their standard thing, but no, it's actually going to be limited release on the 27th through the 3rd, and then will be on Netflix on the 10th. So it has a more similar release pattern to The Irishman from a couple of years ago. And I think Mank very much would have followed in that path had it not been for COVID. I think they would have tried to release it in theaters in like late October, early November, before it came to actual platform or Netflix release rather. So that's that one. The next one up, we might spend a little bit of time on this. The Holdovers. This is Alexander Payne's new film, and I've just really, really, really loved most of Alexander Payne's films. About Schmidt is probably still one of my absolute favorites. Nebraska is also, phenomenal filmmaking. He's a great, great filmmaker. He had a couple moments there with like the Me Too movement where he got a couple accusations, but there hasn't really been much since. So I'm just hoping that was just a thing where it's like, okay, if he misbehaved a little bit, hopefully they, it wasn't anything too serious or anything. And then Downsizing, I still liked it actually quite a bit. And in years since it's come out, I know most everyone has forgotten about that film, but every once in a while it'll pop up on TV or something. And it's actually one, again, my brother kind of has seen a couple times. He's like, he kind of likes that one a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of like it too. Did it hold up as much as the first time I saw it? Not quite. It was pretty entertaining the first time I saw it. Though that third act, I can understand how some people really, really don't like the directions that the third act goes. But this one, though, he is reteaming up with Paul Giamatti. And it sounds like this is an original film. It looks like, and just the way it's looking and stuff, it almost looked like it was like an adaptation of some kind, but it is not. It is an original screenplay, and also kind of like some of Payne's more recent works, not one he is also co-writing, which is interesting. But this one, I'll tell you what, I had really high hopes for it, just hearing what it was about and stuff, and even though it's a smaller cast, it's Giamatti, a couple younger actors, Davine Joy Randolph, who arguably made a big splash with Dolomite a few years ago, or is it My Name is Dolomite? Whatever the full title was, the Eddie Murphy one. And I thought she was a really good supporting role in that. I really enjoyed discovering her in that, if you will. And then since that, she's done a couple things, but I haven't. I don't think I've seen her in anything since. I know she's been working and she's gotten a couple of roles, but yeah, I've not seen. Yeah, maybe and some stuff on television too. But yeah, I don't know. Just a couple early buzzes around the film says both she and Paul really are going to be in contention for acting races. It's could be in the run for original screenplay, since that's kind of a weaker category this year. Lesser highbrow picture contenders are going to be in that race. But I'll tell you what, that trailer, I was not really a big fan of that trailer. I really don't know if this is going to be a film I'm going to enjoy or not. It looks like it's going to have some bite to it, which would be fine. But then it also looks like it's really going to pull its punches, and it's really going to be like, oh, sweet, warm hugs, holiday feeling movie. I don't know. That can still work, but it just I just don't. I'm just not really lining up to see it now. I'll still see it, but yeah, I'm just really not excited. Even though Giamatti looks like he's got arguably one of his bigger chances to get another nomination here. His first real shot in a long, long time. Jeez, I can't even think back to the last time he had a role that was potentially going to lean toward Oscar potential. Now, he's been stuck on the TV side with Billions. I think he's the lead character in that, so he hasn't done as many films recently, but jeez, yeah, I mean, you could argue maybe Straight Outta Compton for supporting actor, maybe. It's like he's just not really had like a big enough role. Barney's Version, maybe some people would say. He was his last shot at an Oscar nomination, and he hasn't teamed with Payne since Sideways, I don't think, unless he was in a very small role that I've completely forgotten in another film he did. But I'll tell you what, this one, it's still going to be at least Toronto. I was kind of surprised. It might be at Telluride too. Let me look at that again. I'm not seeing it. Oh no, yeah, it is at Telluride. So it's going to premiere at Telluride, then it will be at Toronto. So it's hitting 2 out of the 3, which is, again, that's usually a good sign. But again, I'm just that trailer. That trailer is still bugging me. It just, yeah, and it looks like it's a little, I get a kick because this one also just the style of the trailer and stuff. It was very much in the style of like a 70s trailer where you have a narrator, you have the film stock, with it being on actual film and stuff. I don't know if it's what millimeter they used or whatever the shit, but that's not really my strength. But yeah, they kind of made it look like it's an authentic 70s because it's set in I believe in the 70s or late 60s, somewhere in there. Yeah, and I usually I appreciate things like that, like in Argo or The Nice Guys, when the opening logos are 70s style Warner Brothers logos. It's like, oh, that's awesome, I love that. Or Mank, with a lot of the way it looked like, a 30s, 40s kind of RKO production with some of its stuff. And only using one dialogue track for the whole soundtrack of the film. I usually get a really good kick out of that. But here, it just might be too much. I don't know. Maybe when I see the final product, maybe it really comes together and it's actually a really, really good film, and it's a return to form for Payne after, downsizing kind of didn't land where I think a lot of the studio and some of the other people behind it were expecting it to go, but we'll see. And the last one for the 27th is an A24 film, and that's actually from Sofia Coppola, Priscilla, which for some reason I looked at the poster for this. I think I saw it on IMDb or something, and I'm like, Priscilla? Oh, like the Cinderella sister? I don't think that's even the name of the Cinderella sister. I can't remember all those anymore, but yeah. No, this is Priscilla Presley. Yeah. Yeah. clearly not the Cinderella thing, which I thought still, I mean, if you're going to tell a story like, do a story like that, it's kind of like some of the other Disney live action films have kind of done that, but no, this is, so it's Kaylee, I might not be pronouncing it right, but Spaney or Spiani, something like that. Really, I think the only thing I've seen her in is Bad Times at El Royale, which is, I think, a little bit of an underappreciated film. If you haven't seen that one, go back and watch it. Very entertaining film. Very much in the style of a Tarantino, but arguably, it's kind of like a lot of people say it's very reminiscent of like Reservoir Dogs and stuff like that. Personally, I like it a little more than Reservoir Dogs, but I'm not as big a fan on Reservoir Dogs as a lot of other people are. Still a decent movie, but there's a big step, I think, that Tarantino took between Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. A big step he took. Jacob Elordi is playing Elvis here. We'll see if he can do anything like Austin Butler did. I don't know, but we'll see. A24, I don't know. Again, I feel like Past Lives is probably going to be their biggest player this year. They'll probably dump a little bit of money into it. It's going to be at Venice. And it will also be part of the New York Film Festival. And I'm going to look again at Telluride, because I believe the list just came out today for Telluride, which is another reason why I was maybe going to be able to do this video here like a day or two ago, but then I was like, well, we don't have Telluride yet. We were just starting to get a couple things for like The Killers, the first trailer for that, Rustin, which I haven't seen the trailer for yet, but that trailer I believe just dropped today or yesterday. But yeah. Speaking of which, that's the film coming out on November 3rd. The first one we'll talk about in November. And this one, it's actually from George C. Wolfe, who just did Ma Rainey's. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom was the full title, right? Or am I overthinking that? Yeah, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. That was the full title. Okay. Which, yeah, I in retrospect, yeah, that one, I liked it while I was watching it, and it obviously the performances were really great, especially Chadwick. Rest in peace, Chadwick. I mean, one of the better performances, not only of his career, but of that whole, early cycle of COVID and into the 2020s here. Just an awesome performance. But of course, it had to go up against Anthony Hopkins, and both of them were, they're just so neck and neck for me. I think I still prefer Chadwick's performance over Anthony's, but man, that's a Sophie's choice right there. And the rest of the cast was, it was solid job there. of course. But yeah, no, we had he's coming back to direct this one. It's not based on a play or anything like last time. They were going to do another adaptation. George C. Wolfe was not directing it, but another adaptation of an August Wilson play, but that got pushed back. So this one you've got Coleman Domingo is up for, potentially going to be up for Best Actor for this. We're playing Bayard Rustin, who was in the mix with, of course, Martin Luther King Jr. kind of in that civil rights era there in the '60s. But his story is not really one that gets as talked about as a lot of the other bigger players in the time. And yeah, so it's definitely going to be one of those cases where I think a lot of people are going to discover who he is and and kind of learn his story and stuff through this film. Myself, really largely included, because this is one of those when I heard the film title was Rustin, I was like, okay, that could be anything. And then eventually I found out, oh, it's Bayard Rustin? Okay. And so I looked up a couple things about him. I'm like, okay, so that's kind of who he was and stuff. So yeah, by no means am I an expert in all this, but yeah, you got, otherwise Chris Rock is in this, Glenn Turman is in this, Jeffrey Wright is in this, Audra McDonald, Davine Joy Randolph is also going to show up in this. You got, I thought I saw one other name again, but not quite this time. This will also be a player at TIFF. I'm not seeing that it's going to be at, or it will be at Telluride as well. Yep, so again, hitting 2 of the 3. Also coming out from Netflix. So we'll see about this one, but I'm curious about this one, and we'll see if this one gets, because Domingo, I thought, him and Glenn Turman, in the supporting cast of Ma Rainey's, I thought both of them were, as good as the other and stuff. I didn't really, even though Glenn Turman got a big push at one point, I just didn't understand why that particular performance was the standout from that. And so I didn't, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, Coleman Domingo has been he's been great in pretty much everything he's been in, even if he's not like a huge role like this, or Selma, or Django Unchained, or Ma Rainey's. There's 1 or 2 other ones in there that he's been in that, he had a sizable role in, but yeah. Okay, we'll move on here. Also coming out in November are the Marvels. Yeah, I don't know if anyone gives a shit, unfortunately. This is it's another Marvel film. This is Anita Costa is co-writing and directing this one. You got Brie Larson back, of course, as well as Teyonah Parris. I believe I'm pronouncing her name right. And Iman Vellani. I still have not caught up with the Miss Marvel series. Otherwise, you've got Samuel L. Jackson coming back in this one. But and also Randall Park. So you got a couple. Lashana Lynch also, I believe, is going to show up in this one. Which, yeah, she showed up in a lot of stuff, and she's been pretty good in it on the Marvel side. So I wouldn't mind seeing her again. Yeah, I think her role would have to be kind of brief in this one because they kind of explained what happened with her character in WandaVision. But yeah, I don't know if anyone really cares about this one. This is probably one of the more empathetic films that people have been toward Marvel here in a while. And really this year, the last kind of string of films for Marvel, I think generally people have been kind of trending downwards on interest in it. Guardians, for me, like I said in my other companion piece here, Guardians 3 I really loved. Ant-Man I thought was the worst of the films and the TV series that I've seen so far. So you're kind of playing with 2 extremes here. They're kind of going all over the place. So I don't know about this one as far as Oscar chances. The first Captain Marvel I thought really actually stood a decent shot early on in the year of breaking into like the makeup category, for example, but couldn't stick around, or visual effects as well. Now this one is releasing later in the year, but I'm still, I'm not going to hold my breath on this one. I think it'll come out, it'll do some business, it'll move on, and Oscars are probably not going to play much in it. Moving on, later on in November here, we've got a new Hunger Games film, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I really do not like that title. Just a mouthful. But yeah, you got a few recognizable names here, like Rachel Zegler, Peter Dinklage, Jason Schwartzman, Viola Davis, and I think that's all the names I recognize. But yeah, they do got Francis Lawrence coming back, who stepped into the director's chair on the second film, Catching Fire, which was my personal favorite of these films. I thought the next 2 kind of, the last one I actually quite liked, but the third one I thought was a step down. So But man, Hunger Games as a franchise, though, it's like that last one came out. They were all kind of in quick succession, 4 films in 4 years. So I feel like it started really hot, and then Catching Fire I thought was even better, and was the best of those movies. And then it's like the fire just kind of slowly trickled out after that. And since then, I have not really heard many people talking Hunger Games. It felt like it was kind of in the moment there, and then people just kind of forgot about it. So I don't know. The trailer I've seen a couple times. It looks interesting. The story is going to be kind of interesting, but I just feel like this is one where they really could have pulled and they could have done a couple different things that told us some different things about this universe. But instead it looks like they're just leaning too hard on stuff that relates to the actual later films, chronology wise later films. Like you have to have Snow in there in a young role. You have to have somebody who's a offspring or a ancestor rather of the Stanley Tucci character. The lead gal has to be from District 12. It's like, do you really need to pull all this stuff? I don't think so. I think you could have done any random number of things. This could have been, if you have to have Snow in there, okay, maybe he's in there, keep that, but have the main character be from like District 5 or District 4 or something, a random number where it's like, okay, we're going to learn more about this particular district. Because after seeing the 4 films or reading the 3 books, if you did, it's like we kind of know what we know about District 12. We know quite a bit about it. Give us something different. Give us a random district that we don't know very well, or one that we saw maybe for a second in the movies, but now it's like we can kind of go into it, and maybe they have some cool lore or something, But no. Instead, they're kind of leaning, I think, too heavily on the stuff that we know to kind of pull people in. When already, if you're going to include the Hunger Games in your title, I don't think you need to go beyond that. But I don't know. We'll see. It doesn't look like it's going to be a total bust, but I'm just, yeah. And the first 4 Hunger Games, none of them could make an Oscar campaign, even though I thought maybe something like Catching Fire, could have gotten a couple tech, contentions at least. Like, a couple of the sound categories, or maybe visual effects, or costume design, or production design, or something. No dice. All right, the 17th is a little bit of a busier day. We've got also a new Trolls movie coming out, which I've seen. I think I saw a preview for this in front of Spider-Man. Yeah, these movies have not been for me, but as I recall, the first Trolls was in for at least the song category, if I remember correctly. Because that was, Can't Stop the Feeling, which was, that's, was a bigger hit on the radio and stuff. So that one got some stuff. But it might have been up for animated film as well, but it was not. It was not. Okay, and then the second one, I don't believe got any Oscar nominations, but I could be wrong. No, it did not. So, okay. Yeah, and I don't really love the title. Yeah, these movies are not for me. So maybe animated. We'll see if it has an original song that it can throw into contention as well. I'm a little more excited for the next film, though. That's Taika Waititi's new film, Next Goal Wins, which we've been talking about, I feel like, for like 5 years. It's just finally it's going to come out. And it's got Michael Fassbender is kind of the more recognizable name in it. He's going to be the lead character in it. This is going to be at Toronto. It is not going to be at TIFF. This kind of feels like one that it might have played I had a flip there. I'm sorry. Yeah, it'll be at Toronto, but it will not be at Telluride. It's felt like one that could play at Telluride, but it will not. Yeah, and it kind of sounds like also there were a couple changes they made after COVID, because originally you did have Armie Hammer in this playing, I guess, a smaller role, but his character was completely replaced by Will Arnett. So it sounds like that was kind of a quick little fix there. And the trailer was funny. The trailer has funny spots in it for sure. Like when the one guy tries to actually kick the goal and we see it go everywhere except within the nets of the goal. That was funny. You'll some of it you might see as a little slapsticky, but whatever. It looks like it's a cute enough movie. Is it going to be like a major Oscar player? I don't think so, but you know what? It might really surprise us and be a nice movie. So, yeah. So I'm excited for this one. I think it'll probably, if anything, it would probably score better at like the Golden Globes versus Oscars, as far as like that one. I can see it getting into Best Motion Picture Comedy Musical, Best Actor Comedy Musical for Fassbender and stuff. I can see more of that likely at a award show like that versus him getting in for Best Actor, for example. But yeah, I don't know. And Best Actor does feel like it's going to be a little crowded there. Next up, we have another film that played at Cannes, and this is a Netflix pickup from Cannes, and that's May December, which is Todd Haynes' new film, with Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore really being the two leads in that one. And let's see here. If I remember correctly, this is a kind of same-sex relationship film. If I remember reading that part right, it might not be. It just I heard a sniff of that, and then now I'm not really seeing that that's outwardly kind of actress rise to do. Okay, so maybe not. I don't know. I just got a little sniff of that, and then since then I'm kind of looking around. I'm like, I don't see that as like a for sure like thing here. But anyways. But yeah, I think those two seem like they've got a decent shot at landing actress for Portman and supporting actress for Moore. Todd Haynes, Carol, looked like it was going to be one of the more nominated films in 2015, and that crazy year, ended up, ended up being okay. You get a couple things, but you don't get director, you don't get picture nominations. Even though it did very well at BAFTA, did very well, was actually the most nominated film of the Golden Globes that year. Yeah, kind of all over the place. And I was going to look because I think, is the cinematographer? No, the cinematographer, this is not the same one as Carol. It's a different shooter this time. But yeah, I think really outside of the acting races, possibly screenplay, and it might still land for picture if it can get some of those, some more support out of those top categories. But yeah, it's definitely not going to be one that plays in the crafts or anything. All right, we'll move on. When we get to November 22nd, right before Thanksgiving here, then we get a couple bigger players here. Napoleon is one of them, and I'm curious to see what this is going to be like. Ridley Scott's directing this with a screenplay by David Scarpa. Let's see here. Let me look up. He's also he just did All the Money in the World with Ridley Scott and The Last Castle, and he's actually working with Scott again on the next Gladiator film. Part of me is still kind of a little weirded out that they're doing another Gladiator film, because if you've seen the movie, you kind of know what happens to the fates of most of the main characters in that movie. But yeah, this one, pretty good cast in this one, with Joaquin Phoenix, of course, playing Napoleon, Vanessa Kirby as Josephine, Tahar Rahim is in this, Ben Miles is in this, I thought it was Reese, but it's Paul Reese is actually in this, who sounds kind of familiar. Maybe I've seen him in one or two things. Is he like a House of Cards actor or something? I don't know. This one is also going to be out on Apple, which has me a little, because obviously we think Apple's going to put a lot of their dough into the Scorsese film, but I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if this one actually gets a couple more things. It'll get some nominations as well. Dariusz Wolski is shooting this one, who I believe was an Oscar nominee here a few years ago. Yes, for News of the World. That's right. Yep. Okay, I was like, the name sounded too familiar. I'm like, yeah, he had to have been a nominee here not too long ago. But yeah, yeah, the runtime is close to 2 hours and 40 minutes. There was a little article I saw a snippet of that said, no, Ridley Scott did actually have a 4-hour version of this with more Vanessa Kirby, up to the level where she would be actually more in lead actress contention versus I guess she would be in supporting actress for this. But I don't know. Personally, I'm thinking this one, most of the focus is going to go toward Joaquin Phoenix. Remember, I said the same thing about this a few years ago about Joker, and look where that one ended up. That ended up doing very, very well. And the trailer for this does look very interesting, and we will see how it turns out. But that one kind of feels a little more scattershot with its chances. One of Netflix's more hopeful contenders, though, I think this year is going to be Maestro, which is the Bradley Cooper co-written, produced, and directed, and starring film from Bradley Cooper, where he plays Leonard Bernstein. And yeah, this one again, he's in it. Carey Mulligan is also in it, and Maya Hawke and Matt Bomer, and I think Sarah Silverman as well. So it's not a huge cast. Kind of similar actually to A Star Is Born, where it's like, yeah, he's got a few bigger names in it, but it's not like a huge like star-studded cast all the way through. Yeah, and it looks like he's got a few of his contenders back from Star Is Born, like Matthew Libatique doing the cinematography here. And Josh Singer is co-writing the script with Bradley Cooper. And you've actually got Spielberg, actually, who is I don't believe he's only just a executive producer. I think he's actually a actual producer on this, actually putting some of his money up. As Scorsese is also on this as well. So I know there's, for years there's been talk that Spielberg wanted to do wanted to do a film about Bernstein. So he gets to at least produce this one. But yeah. Yeah, so this one, yeah, I'm very curious about this one. The first trailer came out, and it looks cute as far as the romance part of it. But I am interested to see, Bernstein, his, kind of effects on the music world. Obviously, with all the stuff he did, with obviously, West Side Story being his clear, crowning achievement and stuff in his career. But yeah, just everything else that he did though was still pretty spectacular. So this one, it'll be a period piece, so you'll have, contention for your design categories, cinematography maybe. It looks like it's going to be at least partially in black and white and stuff, at least from the trailer. So yeah, we'll see if they really bite that one or not, the Academy. Saltburn. This is Emerald Fennell's sophomore effort after Promising Young Woman. She is re-teaming up with Carey Mulligan in this one, but it looks like Mulligan will have more of a supporting role in this. Barry Keoghan is actually the lead in this. And some of the plot details I've actually been able to read today. I think there was also a trailer out. I haven't quite gotten to it today, but yeah. You got Barry Keoghan, Jacob Elordi is also in this one, if I can learn how to pronounce his name. Rosamund Pike, Richard E. Grant. We mentioned Mulligan, so yeah, there's a few names in this one as well. Yeah, this one will be at Telluride. It's actually going to be one of the earlier screenings at Telluride. And I believe that's about it, unless it's at TIFF, and I'm just scrolling through too quickly and I'm not seeing it here. Yeah, I'm not seeing it at TIFF. So it looks like Telluride, and then it's going to bow out until maybe a couple other things. The BFI London Film Festival looks like it's also going to be at, which is, I guess, not too surprising. A lot of the cast and stuff is British. So this one looks like it's going to release on limited on the 24th of November, and then when we get into December, try to expand out. Yeah, so I don't know way too much about this one, but looks interesting at least. Next up here, we're going to go with The Bike Riders. This is a new film from Jeff Nichols, who I feel like he's gotten some films that have gotten kind of close. Like Loving was a film I really liked. And yeah, that one just couldn't quite, go the distance. It still got Ruth Negga nominated in Best Actress, which was great, but I would have loved to have seen more nominations for that film. Midnight Special and Mud were two really critical darlings of their respective years that, some people really caught on to and really liked. Yeah, so this one, I don't really know way too much about it, but you got, of course, Michael Shannon's in there. He's not the lead actor, but he's in the film. Tom Hardy, Austin Butler, and Jodie Comer are also in the film. Boyd Holbrook will show up in this one. And again, I think that's Mike Faist will also be in it. So you got a few names in it. This one will also be a Telluride. And I did not see it on the list for Venice, I don't believe. Again, unless I, scrolled too fast, but I don't believe it's there. And it's not at Venice, so yeah, Telluride is the sole one for that one. That's another one that'll premiere Telluride, then it'll kind of, yeah, it might pick up. It might pick up at one of the other festivals when we get closer to, late October, November. But yeah, I always have to lend at least a little bit of a curious eye on a film when Jeff Nichols' name is attached. Okay, getting into later mid-December here, we got a couple more interesting ones here. Poor Things is going to be an interesting one. Yorgos Lanthimos is back after his big Oscar acceptance as far as number of nominations and stuff with The Favorite. He's finally back. He's reteaming with Emma Stone. I believe he's already worked with Willem Dafoe. I could be dead wrong about that, but he feels like a director that's worked with Willem Dafoe at least once or twice. You've also got Margaret Qualley, Christopher Abbott, and Mark Ruffalo in this one. And the first trailer did look really abstract and did look really interesting. So I'm a little bit more of a believer in this film. I think this is one, it might not be one of the most nominated films, but I think it's going to get some key categories. Emma Stone, I think, is in potential to be in Best Actress. Yorgos could even land another directing slot here if everything goes right for the film. Adapted screenplay looks like it's at least something of a shot, even though again that's a really crowded category this year. Robbie Ryan could get nominated again. I'll look and see if this other Yorgos, he is a carryover from The Favorite. He was an Oscar nominee for editing that film. It just looks a little abstract, so some members of the Academy might not go for it, but we'll see. It's going to premiere at Venice. It'll also be at the New York Film Festival. It's also going to be at Telluride, and I don't quite think it's at TIFF. I think TIFF is the only one that it's sitting out. Again, I'm looking here really, really quick again just to make sure, but it is sitting TIFF out. So again, it's hitting 2 of the major 3 early ones, and then it'll show up again at New York. So I feel like this one is well represented. It was supposed to release actually not too long after its Venice screening, but they've pushed it back to December. Now, I've heard a couple arguments for it. The press release says it's being pushed back due to the SAG-AFTRA strikes. And then I've heard a couple people that said, okay, they're going to screen it, they're going to see some reaction time, and then they might change a couple things before it gets put into general release. That's another story I've heard. And the third story I heard for why they pushed it, because they're that confident. They think it's going to be one of those films that screens early, you wait, then you release it, and it's still going to be a big release. And releasing it to the public later in the year kind of goes back to your tradition where, for a long time we had films that came out in November or December, sometimes in October, that were your best picture winners. But usually, September or earlier, it was a little tougher to kind of stay the course and go through the whole year. Probably the last one to really prove us wrong, well, the last 2 have really proved us wrong. That's Coda and Everything Everywhere All at Once. Really proved us wrong with that one, but we'll see. We'll see. Since then, Nomadland was a really late release, but of course that was mostly through COVID and stuff. So, yeah. Parasite was also, I believe, a October release, so that got closer back to our old roots there, going back to 2019. But yeah, and this one being 2 hours and 20 minutes is also something. I feel like this one would probably be a little better at like 105 minutes, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm interested to see what that one's about. Another A24, I believe this is just a pickup. I don't think A24 actually produced this one. Yes, they're only distributing it. Production companies include a lot of other people, and that's The Zone of Interest. This one was at Cannes. Reviews on it were really solid, if I remember correctly, 96%, so maybe a little better than solid. Average rating was 9.2 out of 10, so very, very great reviews for this one. And this is an Auschwitz, kind of World War II story. Jonathan Glazer is the writer-director on this one. Sandra Huller is the main actress, and I feel like I might have heard her name from a couple other movies, but she's also in Anatomy of a Fall, so she's got 2 big potential films here this year. Yeah, but this one, Zone of Interest, I believe, is going to be at TIFF. It's at TIFF, and it's also at Telluride, but it is not going to screen, I believe, at Venice. But I'm going to triple check that because I always feel like I say things and then. But no, it is not at Venice. So that's really the only one it's not hitting there. Let's see. It'll also screen at New York Film Festival. It will not be released in its native Poland until later in February. 2024, but it'll be out here in the States, at least in limited release from A24 in December there. So it sounds like it's based off around a true story at least. So those kind of movies. Obviously, most of the time there's some that turn into more Oscar bait and they don't really go very far. Other ones like Schindler's List or boom, big deals. Next one we'll talk about here in December is Wonka. This is a new film from Paul King, who did the Paddington movies, and I don't think he's done much else that I've at least seen. Big cast in this one. You got Timothée Chalamet. You got Hugh Grant, who actually made quite a bit of news from the Oompa Loompa stuff. Keegan-Michael Key is in this. Matt Lucas is in this. Sally Hawkins, Rowan Atkinson, Jim Carter. Olivia Colman is going to show up in this. So pretty big cast here. Bigger budget, over $100 million budget. Of course, this is, another Willy Wonka rendition. And the first trailer, I had to kind of sit and think about it after I first saw it. But at the end of it, I'm like, you know what? I actually think this one might turn out. It might be okay. Because I'm still a little apathetic to the idea of this movie just because I grew up, as most other kids my age, or maybe a little bit younger or a little bit older, it's really even kids today, are growing up with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. They're growing up with Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, and him really personifying that character and really bringing that character to life from the Roald Dahl books. So, yeah, we don't have to get into the Johnny Depp of it all. Just we can leave that out to lunch. But no, this one I'm really seeing that this is going to be a little bit of a different take on it. It is a musical, so that'll be interesting. It looks a little, you could argue a little overproduced, but I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, even though he got a lot of flack for it, the Hugh Grant part at being an Oompa Loompa, I feel like that's really going to be gold. That's going to be money in the bank as far as the comedic values of the film and stuff. And let's not forget, I haven't seen it, the second Paddington, but let's not forget Hugh Grant actually, a lot of people thought should have been an Oscar contender for his villainous role in that. Like, everybody loved him in that. And I really liked his role in Florence Foster Jenkins. I was really shocked when he was not nominated for that because I thought he did just as good a job as Meryl Streep did. And those two together in that film is what made that whole story work, I thought. So I'm optimistic about that one. How far it's going to go with the Oscars, we'll see. But that'll be an interesting watch when it comes out. Next up is Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, an Aardman film. They're finally coming back with another Chicken Run over 20 years after the original. And yeah, I'm sure it'll be cute. I'm sure it'll be a good animated film for the kiddos and stuff. It'll be largely released here in the States on Netflix. Yeah, and it'll have a run at animated feature for sure, but yeah, outside of that, I don't have a lot of hope for it. Cute title though as well. All right, we're coming up toward the end of the year here with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I finally, last Christmas actually, I saw the first Aquaman finally because I was just so burnt out by all the DC films because most of them have been trash. We don't have to get into The Flash again. Do not even make me remember those memories. But the first Aquaman, I was like, it's kind of take it or leave it for me. It was entertaining enough as I was watching it. It's kind of in one eye, in one ear, out the other, if you will. In one eye, out the other. That doesn't make sense. That's not the right analogy. But yeah, and I feel like just the fact that they kept Amber Heard in this and stuff, there's already some people that I know are going to blast this film and just not like it because of that. But whatever. And she wasn't, I don't think she was like a great role in the first film either. Yeah, the first Aquaman didn't make any kind of punch as far as the Oscars at the box office. It sure did. But yeah, with the DC kind of, cycle as it is now really winding down, even, Blue Beetle gave us a little bit of optimism as far as box office results and stuff, but because I thought that was going to tank hard, but not only were critics, but also audiences are really, a buddy of mine saw it and said he loved it. He is from a Latino community, so maybe he just really wanted to see that one because of that more than anything else, but he really liked it. He's not really a huge superhero guy, so I don't know. He recommended it at least, but yeah, the Aquaman, I don't know. I don't see this one being huge. I think it's obviously it's going to take a step down at the box office compared to the first one. I believe. I don't think we're seeing an Avatar versus Avatar: Way of Water. We're not going to see that carryover. I don't think. Yeah. So that's that one. Otherwise, Christmas Day. We got 3 films out that I'll talk about. The first one is The Color Purple, which, yeah, Warner Brothers, they stuck around with this one. They stuck around with Wonka. They pushed back Dune, which was my other video I talked about. Oh, I'm sure Dune is fine. Like 2 or 3 days later, they announced they're moving Dune. I'm like, shit! If I just waited a little longer, I wouldn't have had to get the egg on my face from that one. But again, it's weird because I read a couple articles just to get into that for half a second. And I'll talk about a couple of films that were originally slated for 2023 that are now pushed back, that being a principal one. But yeah, the thing is with that, there was a couple articles I read where they're like, this is, this has been on the writing has been on the wall for months. I'm like, fuck you, it's been on the wall. I saw 1 or 2 articles and then you never talked about it again. Fuck you. Fuck you. I think it was Deadline wrote that. Fuck you, Deadline. That's fucking, you guys are fucking full of shit. You guys, I saw 1 article from you guys and a couple other from like Hollywood Reporter and stuff not too long after the strike started, and then it was never brought up again. So fuck you. Anyway, so now that I got that off my chest, no, I think this, on the surface, I was, we talked about it last winter there. I wasn't really too enthusiastic about this one because it just felt like it was going to be a straight remake. But no, this is actually more, again, I think we mentioned it in my other video there, but this is more of a take on like the Broadway musical version of it. So it's going to be more of a musical version. So that already, okay, that's a different story. It's a different way to tell it. You got a more, African-American involvement behind the camera on this one. So, because I believe both the screenplay, maybe the screenplay writer is also a person of color, but I'm guessing they went to Brown University, so I'm guessing, and that's not just like a knock or anything, or a joke or anything, but no, yeah, because I'm not familiar with the name. It's Marcus Gardley did the adaptation for this, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, this one I feel like it's got it'll probably get a couple bids at acting races. I'm not so strong on its chances for director, but I feel like picture, it's almost a sure bet. Down in the craft categories, it'll get some damage done. So yeah, so I think this one will definitely have some good bids there. Next up is The Boys in the Boat. I've not heard as much about this one. This is a George Clooney directed film. I'm looking through. I don't think he's acting this one. He's only behind the camera on this one. He's reteaming with Grant Heslov, at least on the producing side. Mark L. Smith is writing it, who's done... he worked with Clooney on Midnight Sky. He also worked on Overlord and The Revenant, so a couple more action-heavy films in there. And he's actually writing Twisters, another sequel that I can't fucking believe they're fucking doing. Twisters? Are you fucking serious? Is our nostalgia... And here's the thing. I kind of grew up with that film. That was one I watched a lot when I was younger. But having rewatched it recently, that film is really trashy. It's just really, really, really simple. It's, there's twisters, and there's a little bit of, cliches and cliches and cliches around the human characters. But look at the twister. It's like, are we really that freaking nostalgic for it? Plus, Bill Paxton's dead. You can't bring him back. I'm sure Helen Hunt's in it, but why? I don't know. I don't know why we're dipping into the well on that. I'm sorry. No. That's one I'm not gonna see. No. I'm sure it's gonna look terrible when the trailers come out too. I haven't heard much about this one though. Getting back to it, but it has something to do with the 36 Olympic Summer Games in Berlin, which again that feels like some material we've gone over before for sure. But it's University of Washington's crew that represented the men's 8. Oh, rowing. Okay. Or row crew, as they say in Social Network. Okay. So yeah, I guess it's more of a sports kind of film. Let's see. Callum Turner is a lead actor in this. Have I seen him in something? The name is super familiar. He was in Emma. He was in a couple of the Fantastic Beasts films. Oh, he's the Newt Scamander's brother, I think. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, now I'm starting to piece it together. I've seen all those films like once. Once only, and then never watched them again. Not the last one, but the first 2. Joel Edgerton is also in this one. And I think those are the only 2 like recognizable names here. Haven't heard much about this one. MGM's going to release it on Christmas Day. All right. And then also another one that had a trailer come out today. I was not able to watch it in time, and that was Michael Mann's new film, and that's one that some people are very excited about, Ferrari. So Enzo Ferrari is as played by Adam Driver in heavy makeup for this. Penelope Cruz and Shailene Woodley are also in this one. Jack O'Connell and Patrick Dempsey are also in this. I believe, okay, never mind. I thought he had also written this film. He's only he's directing it and co-producing it, but he's not writing this one. Yeah, so it's basically going to be about Enzo Ferrari. Looks like a higher budgeted film. It's going to play at Venice, and I believe its premiere is actually pretty soon here. It's actually, I'm recording this on the 30th of August, so it's tomorrow is the premiere. Or I guess technically, if it's when I'm recording this in the day, it's later today in Venice. But whatever. Yeah, so I'm curious about this one. It'll be produced by distributed rather by Neon and STX. Yeah, and we'll see what this one's about. I'm curious about it. The last time Adam Driver had to play someone of like that Italian thing, of course, we had House of Gucci, which I didn't really care for, but for what it was, I didn't think his performance was bad in it. And usually Adam Driver doesn't get bad performances, so yeah, for what it's worth. Anyways, but yeah, I guess really quick we can get into a couple other things here before we wrap up. First of all, we can take, I think Gold Derby had a good piece on this the other day. They talked about all the films that were supposed to come out this year, 2023, but are now coming out in 2024. Here we go. Here I found it. And principally among those, of course, is Dune Part 2. I am really disappointed in Warner Brothers for pushing this one. Yeah. And again, a lot of people have been like, oh, this has been, really obvious for a while. And it's like, no, it was not. You guys have not been, you haven't mentioned the fact that it might be pushed, in a long, long time. So screw you. But yeah, this one I thought was going to be a big player. The trailers have looked awesome for it. Even though the first Dune is, again, not one that I've gone back and rewatched a lot, but, I still think, yeah, they did a good job on it. And the other one, I was actually starting to get really hyped, not hyped for it, but, really looking forward to seeing what they were going to do with it. And that's The Piano Lesson, which is another August Wilson adaptation. Malcolm Washington is directing this one. John David Washington was in the lead role. Samuel L. Jackson in a key supporting role, which I believe got a couple Tony nominations when it was on the stage. Corey Hawkins and Daniel Deadweiler were also going to show up in this one. It is Netflix, so they can drop it whenever in 2024, but yeah, I'm kind of disappointed they're pulling that one too. It sounded like it was going to be a good one. And actually, one other one, this one, it got really quick. The news came out that they were going to push this one. That's Luca Guadagnino's Challengers with Zendaya, Mike Faist, and Josh O'Connor. Kind of sounded like an interesting story. But yeah, then right away it got pushed. Like almost immediately after the writers and actors strike started, it just immediately got pushed. So I was like, oh, okay. Okay, so with that all being said, we will go ahead. Let's run down just a quick list of the major films, or at least the ones that I'm, are coming from familiar directors at least, that are going to be at the three festivals. And we'll kind of go chronologically here. So Venice is first. They started with Commandant today. And you've got a couple other films coming out here. For the ones in contention, Dogman is a Luc Besson film. Caleb Landry Jones is in that one. And I don't believe that one has a distributor as of yet for the States, so we'll see if that one plays in 2023 or if it's going to be more of a 2024 release. El Conde, I think is actually the proper pronunciation here. Pablo Larraín's new film. Spencer, I liked Spencer. And Jackie did some business back in 2016. This one does not have a huge cast behind it. Netflix has this one, and it sounds like it's going to be a release on September 15th. So I don't think we mentioned that one yet, but yeah. Raisuke Hamaguchi is back. He's the guy that kind of came out of nowhere in 2020 with Drive My Car and ended up with a couple Oscar nominations. He's got Evil Does Not Exist, his follow-up here, which is going to screen on the 9th of September, so that's going to be toward the end of the festival there at Venice. So we'll see. I would not be shocked if Neon also picked this one up and try to get it in really quick this year. As mentioned, Ferrari, that's going to premiere tomorrow at Venice. Tomorrow, the day of the recording of this. This is going to be uploaded on the 1st. The Killer, we mentioned, that's going to screen on September the 3rd. Maestro will be here, and that's going to screen on September the 2nd. We've got a new film from Ava DuVernay, her first film since A Wrinkle in Time, with Origin. And I haven't heard really very much about this one. She has Ingenue Ellis, who's a name we haven't heard in a few years, John Bernthal, Vera Farmiga, Nick Offerman, Audra McDonald, and Connie Nielsen in this one. So she's got, and Finn Whitrock too, so she's got a decent cast in this one. That's going to screen on September the 6th, but I don't think anyone's picked that one up, and we'll see if, again, that might be a 2024 release at the end of it. We've got Poor Things, as we mentioned, Priscilla, as we mentioned, The Promised Land, which is a new film starring Mads Mikkelsen from Denmark. So we'll see. You know, one of his last films from Denmark was Another Round, and that ended up kind of surprising us there. Didn't get the picture nomination, but got in for director. This one does not have, it's not the same director, though. It's Nicolas Arcel, who has done A Royal Affair, which was an Academy Award nominee. So let's see. Let's just see. I don't know. He also did the first of the original European Millennium Trilogy with Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So he's a known director. And that's kind of, I think, going to be my rule this year. We'll see. That fifth director slot, it's either, an up-and-comer like we saw with Hamaguchi, or it's someone who's been in the race before, like last year. The director's name is slipping my mind now, but the guy who did, and the film is also slipping my mind. But that was a director who had been around before. He'd done a couple things, but yeah. That one is also screening tomorrow at Venice. Let's see. Otherwise, the Kane Mutiny Court Martial, which I believe is going to be more of a television thing because Showtime is producing it. This is actually the last film. It might be more of a television film from William Friedkin. But you do have Jake Lacey, Jason Clarke, and Kiefer Sutherland in this one, as well as Louis Pullman and Jay Duplass. So there's a few recognizable names in that. So yeah, I think it's another adaptation of like the Kane Mutiny thing. That's going to premiere on the 3rd, but that's out of competition, by the way. Coup de Chance is also going to be there, and this is Woody Allen's new film. Interesting. And this is, of course, one he produced in Europe, so he doesn't have access to all his big stars. I don't know how many of them would actually work with him after everything that's happened here, but and it doesn't look like it has an American release date either. It's going to release over in France on September the 27th, but it will screen at Venice out of competition on September the 4th. Hitman, Richard Linklater's latest with Glenn Powell. That, again, has not been picked up yet by anybody. That's going to screen out of competition on the 4th. It will also be at TIFF later on in September. And Roman Polanski, speaking of controversial directors, has also got The Palace here, which, again, I believe was largely produced all in Europe. No big recognizable stars except John Cleese is in this one. That one is going to be released in Italy later on in September. It will screen out of competition at Venice on September the 2nd. And I think that's all we got for Venice. As far as Telluride goes, there's a few good ones here. One that we haven't quite gotten to yet, it was our Palme d'Or winner, and that's Anatomy of a Fall, also from France, with Sandra Huller also being the lead actress in that. That one, I'll tell you what, I kind of, again, we'll get to my predictions here, but I'm keeping an eye out for this one. This could stick around. We'll see. Kind of looks like an interesting subject matter. It's a longer film. It's about 2.5 hours, but, yeah, kind of looks like it's going to have kind of a comedic twist on a more serious subject matter, which involves murder. And at least the poster looks like it's going to have some comedic elements to it, but even though it looks like it's more serious subject matter. That's going to be at Telluride. Bike Riders, we mentioned. El Conde will also be at Telluride. The Holdovers will be at Telluride. Naiad will be at Telluride. Occupied City, which is a documentary from Steve McQueen. Again, first time I've heard his name in a little bit. It's an over 4-hour documentary. It was also at Cannes, 65% rating from Rotten Tomatoes after its premiere at Cannes, so I guess it didn't do quite as hot there. But it has to do with Amsterdam and its occupation during the Second World War. Poor Things will be at Telluride. The Promised Land will also show up at Telluride. Rustin will have its premiere there. Saltburn will have its premiere. Ethan Hawke's new film, Wildcat, which he is only directing this one. I don't think he's actually going to show up in front of the camera here. And if memory serves, he has directed before. I think we've looked at this. I feel like I've looked at this before. I feel like he's directed before. So I'm not going to say debut because somebody's going to point out to me. No, he's directed before. Look at his daughter's in this one. Maya Hawke is in this one. You've also got Cooper Hoffman, Steve Zahn, Alessandro Nivola, Willa Fitzgerald, and Vincent D'Onofrio in this one. Haven't heard much of what it's about, though. About American novelist Flannery O'Connor. And one little screenshot of hers, at least on this, kind of does look like Maya Hawke a little bit, so I don't think it's just typecasting to put her in there. Zone of Interest will also be at Telluride. And last but not least, TIFF, the big, probably the biggest of these as far as length of the festival and number of entries and stuff. You've got the opening film actually, Boy and the Heron, which is that's the Hayao Miyazaki film, or Hayao Miyazaki. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. Which is his first film in a while. Kind of supposedly came out of retirement for this. I'm not seeing there's a Rotten Tomatoes score yet, but it has released in Japan. It did over actually last month in July. I'm interested to see that one though. I'm interested to see if it'll come out and have a decent release here in the States. And I would not be shocked also if they get that one in time picked up for Oscar contention for animated feature. Studio Ghibli. Who works with them on the stateside here? I feel like there's a major company that works with them stateside to get those films distributed, but because I don't think it's just Ghibli that does it here in the States. I think it's like Universal or one of the Focus Features or something. Somewhere on that side, I think, helps with distribution. But these are gala presentations, by the way. But yeah, if that one does come out, I don't think it's going to top Spider-Man. I don't think Spider-Man's going to lose to that one. But boy, especially if this ends up being Miyazaki's last film, we'll see. Because he's been on record before as a director of animation that has said a few times, "I'm going to be done after this," but then he's come back and done more. So kind of like Soderbergh, we'll see. We mentioned Dumb Money. That's going to be a gala presentation. There's actually a Nickelback documentary. I had a couple friends actually just come back from a concert from them. I believe it's a documentary called Hate to Love. And they're a Canadian band, so it makes sense that they're going to be at Toronto. That's also a gala presentation. Naiad will also be there. So I believe Naiad is going to be one of the only films, or maybe the only film. Is that going to hit all three? It's not at Venice, though. Venice it missed out on, but yeah. So that one got very close to being at all three. Let's see, so that's it. For special presentations, Anatomy of a Fall will also be there. The Dead Don't Hurt, which is a film directed by Viggo Mortensen, who has directed before. Vicky Krieps. Danny Houston is also in this one. Set in the 1860s, has to do a little bit around the American Civil War as well. Evil Does Not Exist will also play at TIFF. We mentioned Hitman and The Holdovers also going to be here. I hadn't heard much about this one. Knox Goes Away, which is actually might be the directorial debut of Michael Keaton. He's he's not writing this one. He's starring in and directing this one. He's also got Marcia Gay Harden and Al Pacino in it. I haven't heard much about that one. Next Goal Wins is going to be at TIFF. Pain Hustlers, I think we mentioned, that's going to be at TIFF. Pool Man, which is a film directed by Chris Pine, who is also starring in, producing, and co-writing the film. Co-producing. Patty Jenkins is also producing this one. And he's got Annette Bening, Danny DeVito, Ariana DeBose, Jennifer Jason Leigh in this one. So, yeah, that's a more bigger cast there. Has not been picked up by any major distributors yet, so we'll see if that one makes a splash there at Toronto. I think The Promised Land is that's the only one I've seen so far that's going to hit all three. Rustin will also be at TIFF. Wildcat will be at TIFF. Anna Kendrick's film Woman of the Hour, which might be her debut as a director, but again, I feel like we've already said she's directed before, but I don't know. I'm not seeing much here. Not yet, at least. But yeah, Tony Hale's the only bigger recognizable name I see in this one, and it involves around a serial killer who appeared on The Dating Show, or The Dating Game. Wasn't there a couple of those? Not even exaggerate. I think there were multiple of those. Yeah, Dating Game Killer. Okay, I do remember that. Okay, so there is a kind of an interesting subject matter around that one, at least. yeah, even on the documentary side, I'm not seeing like. Oh wait, nope, he does have something here. Frederick Wiseman, our old friend, is back here with Menu Plaisir Le Twangol, something like that. He's a documentarian, of course, who's been in the game for a long, long time. Comes out with a new documentary pretty much every year, if not every other year. And yeah, he's had a good history of solid documentaries. We watched a few of them in college. That's a part of the reason why I know him. But yeah, City Hall was one that I thought had a decent shot here a few years ago. That was actually a Venice player, but collapsed. Absolutely nobody was interested in it. So yeah, Ex Libre, I believe, was another one he did here not too long ago. That one got a lot of buzz, I remember, that year, and then it just kind of disappeared. But yeah, I haven't heard much about his latest one here. So yeah, he usually has something in Venice, or at Toronto rather. But yeah, I think that's it. And obviously with the strike and everything going on here, it makes sense that that we're not going to see, there's maybe one or two films that we would have seen here but are not. It's hard to guess which ones, but yeah. So we'll see. And obviously, a lot of this is tentative. We don't know at the last, as we go on and as the strike intensifies and more people get hurt by it just financially and stuff. Not just studios, but behind the scenes people and stuff. I saw there was a big, somebody today donated a lot of money to a lot of crew members that are also out of work because of the strike and stuff. So, yeah, again, just hope they get everything resolved here sooner rather than later. And wait, let's get on to the show. Speaking of which, here we go. Let's get into my last thing we'll do here is very first early predictions for who's going to win the Academy Awards, or at least who's going to be in contention. Here we go. You waited an hour and a half to see this. Here we go. For Best Picture, my early frontrunner, and I really hope it doesn't end up having, that target on its back that it just can't shake. It is Oppenheimer. I'm going to go Oppenheimer to start in the lead here. I feel like this is one that can get it done. Christopher Nolan has kind of had his, he's had his, he's up to his due here with a bigger Oscar player. Finally got his first directing nomination with Dunkirk here a few years ago. I think he's on that track, man. I think he's got a good setup here. Plus, Oppenheimer is a pretty big box office hit, paired with Barbie, of course, really helped it. With Dune out of the race, that's one other bigger budget film that's out of the way. So, or at least a budget that's going to be around $100 million or more, obviously. So that's all pointing to really good signs that Oppenheimer might stick around and might do it. That being said, Killers of the Flower Moon, I think, is in a strong second place. Color Purple is my third place pick. Past Lives I have in fourth. May December in fifth. Poor Things I have in sixth. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, I have it in there at seventh. Maestro is my eighth pick. Napoleon is actually my ninth. And I because I had originally Dune in here, I'm going Anatomy of a Fall as my number 10, that Palme d'Or winner. So the other films that are in contention, Barbie is pretty high up here right now on the Gold Derby list. We'll see if it can stick around. The box office only helps it. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see both this one and Oppenheimer both get in for Best Picture. It's possible. I'm not a strong believer in The Holdovers. I don't think so. Zone of Interest, that can come back very easily and be in there. Saltburn, let's wait and see what it's about. Kind of see the first reactions to it. Then I might be a little more ready to jump in on that one. Air, a few people are voting for. I don't know. Ferrari, literally tomorrow the screening. We'll see how it goes. Rustin could play. The Killer, possibly. I'm a little less excited about films like Asteroid City. Naiad, potentially. Bob Marley, One Love is one that some people brought up. We'll see. That one might qualify for 2023, but I don't think it's going to come out. When is it coming out in 2024? Oh, is that right? November 2024? Why? I've seen previews for it. That was... Okay, it kind of contradicts itself here. Then I'm seeing something where it's going to come out in January. And very much will probably be one of those, screen just in time kind of things. Boy, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. It's Paramount. Paramount is behind this one. I really have not seen too much solid word on what that one's going to do, distribution-wise. In the directing race, I have Christopher Nolan out front for Oppenheimer, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, Celine Song for Past Lives. I have Yorgos in there for now, in fourth place for Poor Things, and Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall. I'm going to look up a little bit more about that one because, again, I feel like some of these directing slots, it's like they go with someone who has been around a little bit. Like, again, what was the one that was last year that surprised us in director? Jeez Louise. Four Seasons. Fuck me. What's the name of that movie? Shit. I'm forgetting it already. It's Triangle of Sadness. There you go. Ruben Östlund was our very surprise nominee here. He had Force Majeure and The Square in previous years. So he'd had a couple films that had gotten some attention. The Square was, a nominee for Best International Feature. Force Majeure had gotten quite a few bids that year, like at the Golden Globes and at BAFTA for Best Foreign Language Film. So he has been around the block a little bit. So we'll see if Justine kind of fits that category. Jonathan Glazer, who's the director on Zone of Interest, he might fit that a little bit more. Let's not forget about Blitz Bazawuli for Color Purple. I haven't heard the pronunciation on that yet, so we'll get to it. Greta Gerwig is in play for Barbie, I think. If The Holdovers really goes over well, maybe Alexander Payne gets back in. Emerald Fennell could get her second nomination. Bradley Cooper, he missed out on Star is Born, but we'll see if maybe Maestro. Ridley Scott, potentially. David Fincher, potentially. Michael Mann, potentially. Yeah, after that, maybe Todd Haynes. But yeah, after that, I think it kind of falls off a little bit. In the acting races, my early bid for Best Actor, he's been nominated so many times, both in front of the camera and now a couple times behind the camera, but I think my early pick is going to be Bradley Cooper here for Maestro. Just as a placeholder for now. Cillian Murphy is right on his heels, though. Cillian Murphy again, like I said in my review last video, I could see Oppenheimer coming back and winning this category for Best Lead Actor. It would not shock me in the least. This is a fantastic performance from him. So if he ends up coming back and winning this, I'm not going to complain much because he is excellent in the film. Leonardo DiCaprio is my third place pick here for Killers of the Flower Moon. Joaquin Phoenix, I have in there for Napoleon, and Perry Keegan I have in there right now for Saltburn. I did have John David Washington, but after they pulled that one, I had to pull him out. So Coleman Domingo, just wait. I do not have him in here, but he could score. Paul Giamatti, I actually thought at first was my actual first pick here, but then because the trailer was a letdown for me, I didn't stick around with him. We'll see what Adam Driver does in Ferrari. Potentially Michael Fassbender in The Killer. And then Kingsley Ben-Adir does have the Bob Marley movie. So again, if that one releases in time and screens in time, we'll see if he makes a last-minute push. In Best Actress, I'm going with the relative unknown, but she's going to be the lead actress playing... oh, God, come on. Oh, I have to know her character name. Come on. Color Purple. It's Fantasia Barrino. Whoopi obviously played her, but oh good lord, what's the character name? Oh come on, I've seen the movie a couple times. I ought to know this. It starts with a P, doesn't it? No. Jeez, Selly. Isn't that how you pronounce it? God, I'm not hearing her character name in my ear right now. Otherwise, I would know for sure. I'm pretty sure it's Selly. That's how you pronounce it, or is it Seeley? Jeez. I've seen the movie a couple of times, guys. Trust me, it's been a little while. But yeah, her name is not ringing in my ear right now. I think she's my early pick at least. Greta Lee, though, I have in second place for Past Lives. Then I have Natalie Portman for May December, Emma Stone for Poor Things. I'm putting Annette Bening in there in fifth for Nyad as well. But again, Sandra Huller has a couple shots here. Anatomy of a Fall might be her better shot, so we'll see. Carey Mulligan, I would not be surprised at all to see her pop up for Maestro if she has a good leading role there. Margot Robbie for Barbie, she's got potential. She's got potential for sure. And after that, I think it kind of falls off a little bit. I haven't really heard, there hasn't been much other buzz on a ton of other people so far here. So, yeah. In the supporting races, starting with supporting actor, I actually do have Coleman Domingo nominated here, and I think he gets in for the color purple for this one. And if memory serves, he's the Danny Glover character. He's Albert. I can pronounce that name of all for sure. But yeah, I think he's my early pick there. Robert Downey Jr. though for Oppenheimer. Let's see. Let's just see if I don't know if Oppenheimer is going to be good enough to get like 2 Oscar wins in the acting races, but I think it's got at least the 3 nominations here. The third one we'll obviously get to in a second here, but damn, he is damn memorable in that film. John Magaro for Past Lives is my 3rd place pick. Robert De Niro, I do have in for Killers of the Flower Moon, but again, I'm just not convinced that's going to happen. I haven't seen the film or anything, but off the buzz of the film, Lily Gladstone was like the sole like acting performance that everybody just said, boom, 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 she's great, she's great. I didn't hear as much, aside from the occasional, oh, Leo, he's always good. But I didn't hear really much about De Niro, so I'm a little skeptical on that one. And I looked down the list, and I just don't know who else to go with this 5th pick. And I'm surprised that people are picking him, but Ryan Gosling, Barbie. I gotta give Barbie something. So I do have Ryan Gosling here in a kind of, again, reluctant 5th place here. So I felt my 4th and 5th are just really reluctant picks right now. But I don't know who else to go with here. Like, I don't see, people are picking Jesse Plemons, but I don't know. He really had to work hard to get that nomination here a couple of years ago for Power of the Dog. I don't know how big his role is in Killers of the Flower Moon, but we'll see. Mark Ruffalo and Willem Dafoe kind of feel like they're kind of splitting on Poor Things, and I don't think that one's going to be a strong like performance-driven film like The Favorite was. Matt Damon in Oppenheimer is fine, but I really don't see him getting in for that. Some people are looking at Corey Hawkins for Color Purple, maybe. Actually, yeah, I should look up. Yeah, because Coleman Domingo, he is Albert in the new version, right? I mean, age-wise, it would make sense, right? Yeah, he is Albert. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I was going to say age-wise, that would totally make sense. But yeah, after that, I'm really struggling with any names that are feel like sure bets for me. If he was more of a villainous role, I would have said somebody like Benny Safdie in Oppenheimer, but he, historically around that character, he didn't do great things, but they didn't really show as much of that in the film. Okay, yeah, so for the first time in a while, I feel like that supporting actor race, at least at the moment, kind of feels like, yeah, we've got a couple sure bets, but after that, it kind of falls off a little bit. In supporting actress, I have Lily Gladstone out front for Killers of the Flower Moon. Then I have Taraji P. Henson in for Color Purple. And I was really close. Danielle Brooks, I think, also really stands a good shot at getting in. She's Sophia. And if I remember right, yep, that's the Oprah Winfrey role from the original. And Shug is Margaret Avery, who was also a nominee, and that's from the first film. That's also Taraji P. Henson, so I think that's why we're seeing those two really be the favorites here in their respective races. Yeah, and obviously, yeah, those were big, kind of scene-stealing, roles in the original films. Especially Margaret Avery, man, she's good in that original film. So I have Taraji, but I do have Taraji in over Danielle Brooks. Again, that's a very close call, and I could end up swapping that one or putting them both in at one point. Emily Blunt, I do have in 3rd place for Oppenheimer. I think she's solid. Viola Davis, I'm keeping in for Air, and Julianne Moore I have in for May, December. But, yep, Danielle Brooks is definitely really, really close for me. Davine Joy Randolph, we'll see. Again, there's some buzz around her performance in The Holdovers. Yeah, I mean, I've heard some buzz around Rachel McAdams for Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. We'll see about possibly Scarlett Johansson for Asteroid City, but again, that feels like a little bit of a stretch right now, having seen that one. Possibly Carey Mulligan for Saltburn. Yeah, I'm just, if Rustin takes off, maybe a couple, Davine Joy Randolph or Audra McDonald possibly for that one. But Yeah, I don't know. Vanessa Kirby for Napoleon, I'll throw out there just in case, but I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, we feel like we got a couple things here. By the way, I should mention though, in supporting actor, in place of Ryan Gosling, I did have Samuel L. Jackson there for a little bit for Piano Lesson, but after that movie took off, I had to. That's where I had to put Ryan Gosling in. So on the original screenplay category, I have Past Lives out front to start, then Maestro in second, Saltburn in third, May December in fourth, and Anatomy of a Fall in fifth. The Holdovers possibly could play there. Obviously, Air could play there. Napoleon maybe. Rustin, I'd be a little bit more optimistic about that one's chances, frankly. Asteroid City maybe. That's a solid maybe. Yeah, and I think yeah, that's really again we're a little more sluggish here on the original screenplay. On the adapted side, though, here we go. Oppenheimer I have out front, then Killers of the Flower Moon, Zone of Interest, Poor Things, and Spider-Man being my top 5. But also in contention here is Barbie, as is The Killer, as is The Color Purple, Next Goal Wins, possibly even Dumb Money and The Boys in the Boat. We could see Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which is a famous adaptation of a book. Ferrari's going to be on the adapted side. Naiad's going to be on the adapted side. Yeah, it feels like, again, more of your heavy hitters are over here and adapted. Now, Spider-Man, I put in there a little reluctantly. Again, I had the Piano Lesson in here originally. I thought even Dune had a shot of getting in here again, but again, since those two are gone, we have to fill it up with a couple other films here. Yeah. Now, Color Purple does feel like it's very much like West Side Story here a couple years ago. It's going to get in contention for a few acting nominations. Director's a possibility, pictures up there, a few tech categories, and it could end up. Color Purple could end up with double-digit nominations like the original did, very easily could. But man, a screenplay feels like one category where it's probably going to fall short, though. So that kind of falls in line there. But yeah, for me, I feel like Spider-Man. It's going to be. It feels like a weird nominee, especially in a more stacked category. But that's again, if it's going to get in for picture. Since it doesn't have the music categories to help it, like the other two animated films that have gotten in for picture, the other three, I should say, because Beauty and the Beast got all its other nominations from the music categories. It's been the screenplays. The screenplay category really helped Up and Toy Story 3. And the sound category. The sound category got also nominations for a version of a nomination for those two films as well. So if Spider-Man can get in for sound, it can get in for adapted screenplay and get picture. That's 3 nominations and 3. Sometimes we see the rare films that get 2 nominations, but you're better off when you can get 3. So there you go. All right, and that's all she wrote for today, guys. So we will be back here probably sometime in mid-September. Probably a little bit after, at least partway into TIFF. I don't want to jump the boat and immediately go into it'll have to be at least after the Golden Lion has been announced, the winner of the Golden Lion. So it'll be a little ways in there. I hope you enjoyed the Stormtrooper. Again, he's not going anywhere. Really cool piece. So I'm glad to have something in the background for once. So that's nice. So we will catch you guys later on down the Oscar trail.